Hello, everyone. Welcome to an all new episode of the Indic Explorer show. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. We need all your support. This is your host, Vineet, and today we are out here to discuss a very topical issue. When should students study evolution and the periodic table in their school's curriculum? This has become a hot potato controversy recently because Richard Dawkins. Actually, while this was actually written in an article in the Nature magazine, it actually became viral when Richard Dawkins, the prominent neo atheist. So, Richard Dawkins is a prominent neo atheist, and he had written a tweet. So, for the to give the context to the viewers, uh, I will take you through those tweets. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to the panelists today. Professor Ayan Datta, welcome to the show. Namaste. Also,
Very glad to connect to you.
yes, so Professor Datta will be representing chemistry, the field of chemistry, and I have Professor Vibha Tandon. Namaste. She will be representing biology and as well as chemistry. She insists to me. So, yeah, welcome to the show,
Yeah,
ma'am.
very good afternoon, Vineet, and it is good to be connected to be on your show. And I hope we will be able to uh, say answer and say maybe give some better solutions to the viewers of this programs, and maybe through this program some of the people may really understand that why whether this controversy is correct or it is incorrect, or whether it was required or not required. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we get into the crux of the topic, just a one line introduction of what you do for the people who don't know, so that they can place you in terms of your credentials and why you can talk about this subject with your expertise. Professor Datta,
Yeah, thank you. I'm a structural chemist, and I work in the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, and I am an expert on theoretical chemistry and computational chemistry, and of course, periodic trends in chemistry. So I also work on structural properties across the groups. I mean, the way Mendeleev would have defined it. So I also work on correlations across the periodic table. And so I think that's a brief introduction. Thank you, Vineet.
thank you. Professor Tandon,
I'm Vibha Tandon, and I'm serving as a faculty at a special center for molecular medicine. And by training, I'm a chemist, but I pursue biology as one of my research topic. And in the biology and chemistry, what we do, I work at the interface of chemistry and biology. I've been working for the drug development against the infectious diseases and cancer biology and the radiation therapy in cancer. So I am not directly related to the evolutionary biology, but obviously I have taught as a teacher for almost 23 years at the postgraduate and the undergraduate level in Delhi University and JNU. So I hope I can do justice with this particular topic.
sure. So, to give context to the people, I will be sharing my screen. This was the tweet which Richard Dawkins tweeted. Modi's BJP is a tragic affront to India's secular beginnings. Hinduism is at least as ridiculous. And he mentions a lot of things there. And he then says this is in reaction to India cuts the periodic table and evolution from school textbooks. Experts are baffled. Now I'm going to deep dive into this original source because he's responded on this source. So it's important that I share where it is coming from. It's coming from, so I was reading a couple of articles and it all goes back to the Nature magazine. So basically, it says India cuts this out. And if you read, so the first thing is that he's saying that both these concepts are being removed from the textbooks. But to give context, the very article which he quotes clearly states that it has been removed from the textbook in the grade, in the ninth grade, I believe, ninth, 10th grade, and it has been pushed to the further grades in class 12. So basically, what that means, so the first point to look at is it's not removed, it's being shifted. So that's number one. But before I go to both of you, I would also, it would be fair to also give NCRT's official response from their official Twitter handle, where they've mentioned during the COVID-19 pandemic, students and teachers across schools were at home and managing teaching learning using alternative models. NCRT attempted to rationalize the contents of the textbooks in 2021, considering the following criteria. We'll come to these criterias, but they've responded saying that COVID में there was, obviously teacher like direct teaching possible नहीं था, online सब हो रहा था. Difficulty level they reduced it a little bit. That's the crux of it, and they've moved it further. That they've clarified that they've moved it to class 11 and 12, uh, and they've given some reasons for it. So these links will be shared in the description. Now, where I wanted to come to both of you. So first, I'll start with Professor Datta. Uh, where do you think, sir, it comes from, and why is this so controversial? Like, what's your take on this subject?
Okay. So I will first of all, being an expert in structural chemistry, so I would first have my comments on the periodic table. And of course, I mean, being a student of chemistry, for that matter, being a student of science, all of us have studied the Darwin's theory, the Lamarck's theory, and the theory of evolution, and how people correlated. So I will come back to it. So in my first comment would be like. Looking at it, so I mean, I have been actually looking at the syllabus, I mean, the modified syllabus of NCERT, class 9th and 10th, and the portions, I mean, these two portions which have been subsequently moved to class 11th and 12th. Now, coming to the chemistry part of it. So, I mean, still class 7th, we have a general science, and then the subjects of chemistry are evolving in class 8th, 9th, and 10th. So when I looked at the syllabus of class 9th and 10th, so they start with the concept of building the foundation. And the foundation of chemistry is the atomic structure. How atoms combine, the rules of atoms combining, the specific rules of atoms combining. And there are specific rules. I mean, there are the octet rules, and there are the rules in which, I mean, the electrons, I mean, the electronegativity, electropositivity, I mean, how a sodium chloride molecule will be formed, how a covalent bond will be formed, and the description of the shell structure of the atom, and what is in the atom, what is the nucleus of an atom, and how the charges are balanced. So these are done with great details in class 9th and 10th. So this is the basic language which one needs. So you have to remember that when we are talking up to class 10th, we are talking about a generalist, a student who will in future might take up, I mean, literature, might take up sports, might take up music as a career. What are the very basic important things in chemistry that he or she needs to learn? And I would say NCERT has done a good job of keeping the foundation ready. I mean, the modern atomic structure, how atoms are formed, and then comes the reactivity. Chemistry is structure, reactivity, and reactions. Now, in reactivity, they talk about the acids and bases, very fundamental, and then acids and bases combine to form salts. I was actually looking at the NCERT syllabus, and I think they have made a wonderful correlation when they talked about the salts. They also give an example that sodium hydroxide reacts with hydrochloric acid to form sodium chloride. And then there is a footnote with this beautiful imagery of Bapu and his Satyagraha movement, and then to say how the salt movement is connected with the greater common good of the nation. So I think that has been very well thought of. So then they come to what is called pH. I mean, there is something called, if you open your advertisements. See, one of the very important thing for any student who has studied up to class 10th is being able to understand with the languages. I mean, very basic languages of what is a painkiller. then they have what is petroleum. So they have the structures of hydrocarbons, which is the structure of carbon. Largely organic chemistry, which is life. I'm sure Vibha is going to talk about it, because life and organic molecules, which is the language between chemistry and biology to a very large extent. And then there are metals and non-metals. So coming to when a student, even with this modified syllabus, and because of the, this, see, had there been no COVID, we would have had everything. That is the first thing to keep in mind. Because of COVID, and not all students had access to very good internet connections all across India. So there was a requirement. See, so class 10th, the class 10th is the first examination in which renormalization occurs, in which it doesn't matter whether you have come from a very rich background or whether you have come from a poor background. This is the first platform which is made a uniform platform, where even the poorest of the poorest child can show his or her merit. So in other words, we have to keep the platform uniform, so that a person who, or a student who did not have a good internet connection, had an access or has the ability to compete with the best. I can take names, but doesn't matter, with the best paying schools. So that is, I think, that was the motto of getting it renormalized. So keeping the basic things ready. Now coming to the matter of contention here, which is the periodic table. Now I give you an example. The first thing to learn is that the first thing. So what is the periodic table? If you are not a chemist, I would say periodic table. If you go to a library, there are a lot of books, and there are books on art, literature, language, culture, and so on. Now, the curator of the library, or the librarian, actually catalogs them and connects them in a way so that if you go and start searching for a book on, say, music, you would like to find it out quickly. So that is what Mendeleev did. Mendeleev connected the otherwise unconnected things which were seem unconnected, and made them under a table, so that there is some kind of a unification, right? Now, unification in any form, people of polity will know, whether it was unification by Bismarck of Germany or anything. Unification will work only if you have material. So material is where is the basic things, whether you have studied the basic chemistry. So unification is something which is post facto, in a sense. So even if this unification is lost out to a general student who is going to he or she who is going to pursue art or literature at a later point of time, the fact that he or she would be able to understand the very basic things, like metals, non-metals, structure of atoms, bonding, would equip that person to handle himself or herself for the next challenges that he or she is going to face in the next 50, 60 years. We are not talking about ourselves. We are talking about a student who or she is at a 15 or 16 year of age, and he or she is going to use that very basic knowledge up to an age of 16 plus 10 to have an understanding of the world. In fact, why world? Extraterrestrial world. Even with AI, we might be in moon 70 years from now, to have the basic understanding. And I must say NCERT has done a good job. And again, to recap, the good job in the sense it has provided a uniform platform. If you had a periodic table, and if you had something which is very, very detailed, where a student of a village might not have been able to get that exposure. So class 10th syllabus is a place where the student is given a platform. एक गांव का बच्चा भी आके बोर्ड टॉपर हो सकता है, and that is the beauty of our country, that it doesn't matter where you have come from, what you have and what you have performed. So in a way, it is a great equalizer. It adds equity to the system. I understand at the cost of some details. And the second thing, the very basic important concepts are covered, so that he or she is equipped with that knowledge to go to the new education policy or the national education policy, and even to go to abroad or wherever for the next 70, 80 years. We are talking about life of the future, not in the past. So I think this is my opening statement, and of course I would be looking forward to listen to Dr. Vibha. and of course, subsequent discussions. Thank you.
Okay, so Professor Tandon would like to know your views as well, especially with specific to evolution. My so what I wanted to know was why the reason has been cited कि COVID के time में we have changed it. The first thing that I saw also is that I read it that it is a permanent change. Now I'm not very clear if it is permanent or is it because of COVID. I've read that it initially it was thought it is just a temporary one. Then I've read that it's a permanent one. Either ways, my point here is, let's say that if it was optimum to study it at a later period, class 11, 12, why was it all these years at a lower grade? I would first like to understand that. And where do you stand on when someone should read about evolution?
What has happened that there are 15, 16 chapters were there, and at the time of the COVID, they were reduced to 12 and 13 chapters, 12 chapters in class 19, class ninth, and 13 chapters in class 10. And then they have and they have removed four chapters from there, and they have introduced one or two new chapters over there. And and after every 5 years, NCRT revises their syllabus depending on the feedback which we have got, and they try to include the contemporary topics in that. So, and they try to, that is done by a proper committee, and there is a committee which sits for almost 1 or 2 years to write the new textbooks. So, we should not say that it is a permanent deletion. And so now I'm coming to the directly that, yeah, but I want to say you that in the September 2022, they released a textbook which is being distributed to the student in the this academic year, and in that the periodic table and the evolution is not there, and evolution and periodic table both are being taught in the class 11th and 12th. So now I'm coming to the that the in whatever Ayan says, I agree to that. But the only thing I would like to add over here that it is they have given four different points. NCRT has given four different points why they have removed it. So if I put it, the crux of those points is that difficulty level and the repetitiveness and if it is just redundant, or maybe but the so and if it has been taught earlier than class ninth. So in that way they have given four different reasons for the rationalization of their syllabus. So I would say that they must have done it with a lot of people. A lot of experts have sat and they have decided about it. But if I come to my view on that, I would say that there is only one small thing which bothers me. It's not that if they will not be taught periodic table in the class ninth or 10th, they will be really losing something because as they are being taught in the class 11. The only concerns of mine is there that because up to the class 10th only, the science is common to everyone, and then at class 11th the it goes into the sciences stream, humanities stream, or arts, so it got divided. So the students who do not take the sciences streams, they will not be exposed to the periodic table, and the evolution is somehow being taught at the different parts, and they are being talked about the evolution in a very primary manner in other classes also. So the only thing will be there that they may not be because what happens in the periodic table, that it is an organized manner to understand the distribution of element, and that gives them a that okay, everything whatever is happening in terms of the say properties of the elements is related to their atomic number. It's so they can very well correlate it, and they can enjoy it. I would say that I used to enjoy periodic table. So in that way, I would say that maybe later on, after say a lot of other experts, when they will say that okay, periodic table should be brought back, they can bring it back in a more elementary manner rather than what it was there. Although it was earlier also not very in a tough, the chapter was not very tough, around 17, 18 pages were there. There. So that is the one point I see into that there. Now, if I come to the evolution, so in terms of the evolution, the chapter was hereditary and evolution. So, and before that, there used to be a chapter where they used to talk about the life processes, and they used to also talk about the organisms. So, in order to relate the life processes and organism, diversity of the organism, and say how the different say offspring, they carry on the traits of from their parents, the evolution was also supporting those facts, and it was making little bit more clear to the student to understand the life processes and the heredity. But I don't think that it has any agenda, as it is being told by the people, that it has been the Darwin Indian people, or in the current context of the government of India, is against the Darwinism or something. I don't think there is no such agenda is there. It was just that they wanted to make it more easier, more say acceptable. And as Ayan said, that maybe they were and there is one thing going on in say Indian education system, that the class 11th and 12th and class 10th say material is quite difficult, and students are baffled and they are under pressure. They are not able to cope up there are a lot of say they get frustrated, they just lose the interest because of so much of the load. So maybe because of all these things it have been decided, and I think much better explanation will also come sometime to the from the NCERT. And I would like to add one very interesting point here. I think somewhere NCERT was looking that this attack is going to come on that, because it was not required. You will find that even their textbooks talk about the rationalization of the syllabus. No textbook ever talks about the rationalization of syllabus, but those experts have automatically have put the rationalization of the there. So this is all about my opening comments.
I think this is a very important point you have made. I think this also unfair to a very large extent. See, educators and particularly people who are teaching in the schools, and they are limited by so much of heterogeneity, and in a realistic sense. I mean, you have students from all backgrounds and things, and this controversy and this I would say even the vested interest controversy is the last thing which should be done to education, particularly of young people. So I agree with you, and I think this rationalization of syllabus was there. See, when I was a student, I never had periodic table in class 9th or 10th. For us, it was in 11th and 12th. So what has happened over a period of time, things have become actually more difficult for the students. Lot of knowledge has been, I mean, about what would I say, compressed in the things, and lot of things have been brought into class 8, 9, 10th, 11th, which is a huge amount of pressure on them. And one has to remember, they are not only studying science, they are studying science, mathematics, and all other subjects, literature. So I think this is a collage we are talking about, and we are talking about a greater common good. In this case, if there is a load reduction, I would say that the NCERT might have had a lot of discussion to do it.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
say if we talk in terms of the evolution also, so in the evolution part, if we can look into that, say there are whenever we talk about the evolution, there used to be through the evolution we come to know that how the why one species of the is different from the another species. Through the evolution we also come to know that how have we grown up and how have we evolved. And evolution is not actually directly connected to the progress, and it seems the people who are commenting, they are connecting it with the progress. So it was, and they are connecting which has nothing to do with the progress. It was just evolution is a process where we come to know about the how the one species on the say planet is connected to the another species.
Yeah. So now, what Richard Dawkins does, he's a neo-atheist, and neo-atheists are completely against religion, and they think of it as dogma and all of that. And he tries to bring that into this discussion around evolution periodic table. That is one. The problem with that is that he's bringing a Western conflict of religion and science to India. Like in the West, because Christianity believes in creationism and all of that, sometimes schools have to teach both creationism and evolution as theories, or sometimes they don't want to teach evolution and all those issues because that somehow tends to impact their belief in their religion. The problem is Indian religions, don't really like I don't want to say they don't care about science. They probably engage with science, but they don't really. The religion versus science thing has never been a historical issue in India. Like the things that Galileo and Copernicus faced in Europe in the medieval world for their scientific theories. That was those kind of things never happened. People used to wear. I mean, Aryabhatta was a mathematician. He was religious. Like people used to wear both those two hats together. Like कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि ISRO में the scientists when they have to do a udghatan they break the coconut. Does that make them any less of a scientist? Like so these things we don't really see those things in opposition. So I think that theory kind of flies off completely, and he tries to bring that into this. And neither I personally, my take is that both of those two things at some elementary level should be taught to everybody. I, as a student, also feel that I enjoyed the periodic table and even evolution. The story of how actually Darwin found out this theory in the Galapagos Island. It's quite a fun learning experience, and I think it's an important concept. But you can obviously debate कि किस age में होना चाहिए. That is what the issue is. It is not about removing it. I don't see any malice, either religious or the administration, like government kind. It's more of an educational decision, is how it comes across to me. Having said that, I found a very interesting article, which I want to share, which is from two authors who are part of the Indian Society of Evolutionary Biologists, and they have an interesting take. Again, they think that this should obviously be taught to everybody in at that age, but basically their main pointers, and I will share this link. There are two authors basically, Shashidhara and Amitabh Joshi. Why dropping evolution from standard 10 curriculum is a very bad idea. And some of the key points they mention is importance of evolution to understanding life, centrality of evolutionary biology to our survival and healthy living, importance of evolution in our intellectual history, although I'm not sure about this point, importance of evolution to cultivating scientific temper. I think this is the strongest case. And in the concluding part, they try to say ki why has this been removed? And students taking only science specialization should not be the only ones. Everybody should learn about it, right? And interestingly, they also mentioned that this particular society of evolutionary biology, which is in India, they are like, "Humse bhi to pooch lete. We are experts in this field. At least take our opinion." So that is what they have mentioned. It's an interesting point of view, but yeah, that is what it is. So coming back to you, Professor Datta, my question is, you're saying that both these concepts are okay to study at the age at a later age, like has been moved. Uh, like I said, why was it being taught at a lower grade before?
No, Vineet, the thing is, I mean, see, ideally they should be there. This is only because of the contingent issue of the COVID. And COVID was such a big disaster in which you could not, because what has happened over a period of time, the syllabuses have actually become very heavy. I mean, the kind of things which are being taught now and you have to also remember, I mean, we are scientists and we love ourselves, students to study science, but you have to understand that a student who is going to class 10th has to study history, geography, civics, literature, two subjects, first language, second language at least, and science and maths. So there is a lot of things which a student has to study, and considering the fact that because of the COVID there was a requirement of load reduction, so something needed to be removed. I mean, of course, it can be an issue that once things became, and that's what Vibha was saying, once things become, I mean, we can again have a relook at it once things have renormalized, when the students see who are the people who are now coming for class 10. They had COVID, they suffered COVID, or their family suffered COVID when they were in class 5th, 6th, 7th. These are the times which are the formative times. So these are the period they have lost out on something, and it would not be a good idea to waste, or to make them so to not to give them a uniform platform. So this is a stopgap arrangement. Now coming to the mention of this article by Shashi Dhara and Dr. Amitabh Joshi, very distinguished scientists. Points are well taken. Points are well taken, but the question is, ye nahi to kya? So I mean, there would have been something else which would needed to be denormalized. So evolution. Now coming to it, there is a little bit of salt to it. Now the issue is here. Now what is, I actually looked at this, the modified syllabus, and they have the Urey Miller experiment. And Urey Miller experiment very clearly says that the origin of life are inorganic things from nitrogen, and there were I mean sparks, and so life evolved not from great things, not of God's desire. I mean, that is can be your belief, but Urey or Miller's experiments show that life evolved from something very unromantic, if I may say so. Now, that scientific aspect has been mentioned very clearly. Now, the question is about the issue of evolution. Well, evolution should be there. I mean, and in a way, evolution is there in various aspects. Now, whether evolution can be taught, yes, should be taught, yes, but this is a stopgap arrangement. And because of the stopgap arrangement, there has been a, I mean, little bit of load reduction. So I'm sure when the lower students will come up, I think we might have again a relook at it. And this has nothing to do with, see, the problem is, and you are right when you say that, see, the problem of evolution has always been with the Western world, not in the Eastern world. In the Western world, church had a problem with evolution because then it assumes that God is not perfect, or so on and so forth. I mean, so that is the issue of creationist here. Now, for us, there has been no division between science and religion. In fact, if you look at, I mean, the way, I mean, the Buddhayan Sulabha Sutra, which was at least few hundreds years before the Pythagoras theorem. So the Buddhayan Sulabha Sutra, that in a right angle triangle, you have a square plus b square is equal to c square, and the reason why Sulabha, I mean, Buddhayan had to do it was because he wanted to make geometrically accurate altars for giving yajna. So the fact that you needed science, geometry, and those things was always an integral part of culture. Temples, if you look at the construction of the temples, there is a lot of science and religion and belief in there. So for us, having a very modern approach to science does not affect our belief in whatever we believe in. So that is the first thing which needs to be cut off. So, I mean, within an Indic way, there has been no confusion or even contradiction between accepting modern science, atomic theory, or for that matter the periodic table. By the way, I would also like to mention a very wonderful article written by the group in Norway, the Arctic University. They have made a wonderful connection between the evolution of the Sanskrit grammar. In fact, the formation of the Sanskrit grammar by Panini and that of the periodic table by Mendeleev. So for us, these are very natural. So for us, science has no, I mean, I would say there are no discontinuity in a sense. So I think this has been a kind of a, they're trying to bring a Western mental block into our thing and confuse our students. And I don't think this is a very correct thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, so one thing I want to ask you, Professor Tandon. Now you mentioned that basically COVID की वजह से this has happened. My concern is much larger now than evolution and periodic table. And that concern is, while we understand there are limitations of teaching and imparting teaching to students and for students to learn during this time, would it hamper the long-term scientific understanding of the generation of children in these intervening years? Uh, Not specific to just evolution, but these cuts that have happened in the syllabus. And should that be a worry for parents and teachers that their foundational basics are going to be a little more raw compared to students from other years?
I don't find that our children, I'm coming to directly to your question answer, that I don't find that they are going to miss something, right? Yes, once again, I'm saying that whether it is evolution or it is periodic table, both are very interesting topic. They are required to be taught to the students. And but if they are being taught between the 13 to 15 age level, and they are not being taught to between 13 to 15 age, and they are being taught at the 16 years, so in 1 year they are not going to lose everything. There is one thing. Another thing is, there once again I am saying that the evolution, a part of evolution syllabus is being taught in the say class 8th also, and 7th and 8th also. It is being introduced over there, but it should not be a big worry to the parents that my child has been not taught, has was not taught the periodic table or evolution in class 9th and 10th, and they have missed something. But the only point I would like to reiterate over there, that maybe NCRT will revisit to their changes, and they may not like to include it. Now, what is evolution? Let us first understand it. So my answer is to that, that the evolution is a science where we read that how we have to connect one species to another species. How do we do speciation? There is a word that how do we disconnect the, how do we say find the differences between one species to different species. So this is one connection which helps us to find out the connections in the diseases also. So it is somewhere connected to the higher say, you can say, in the terms of the diseases. If there is a disease which is occurring in a say bacteria, say somewhere in the lower organism, and then it is occurring in the humans also, so we can connect it in terms of evolution also. But there is no direct connection till now have been found. So in terms of that, once again, your question is more or less about that, whether we are losing something very big about that. It's not. If we are teaching them in the later part of their life, and that we are not taking up to the college, we are teaching only in the school, because in India, till 11th and 12th, it is school. But whereas in the British system, high school is the last schooling system. But where for us, class 12th, 11th, and 12th is still in the school. So I don't agree with that.
So largely, what I gather is that this is kind of much ado about nothing. It's a policy decision taken at a higher level in the by the NCRT, and I think if it has been thought through, then I don't think there is much to contend in that. And it is, like you said, it's not been removed. And these are subjective questions in a way as to what age this subject should be studied. But the overarching conclusion that I reach at the end of today's discussion is that it's much ado about nothing. And I think life will go on for the students, and those who take up sciences will still be reading both of those, and they are not being discouraged to study this at all. Is there anything you both want to say as a closing statement?
Yeah, see, that is the point which I'm trying to make here. I mean the issue is a bigger issue. The issue is, are we opposing the scientific spirit, or the growth of scientific spirit in the students? The answer is we have never. For example, just to give you an example which is tangential to the discussion here. For example, for us, geography, I'm just trying to mention something which is related. Geography was always called Bhugol. So, in a sense, the world was not flat, and world was spherical was known to us by the name of the subject itself. So in a sense, we never hanged Copernicus or Galileo for calling the world a sphere. So in a way, in a sense, science and the modification. So in a way, science is an integral part of the way we think. And whether these subjects have been dropped out, and we have discussed it again, is because of this. A very very unusual thing of COVID, and COVID happened once in 100 years in that kind of difficult situation, and this is just to reduce the load of the students. And I don't think, and I fully agree with Vibha, that I don't think the students or their parents should be unduly worried about it at all, first of all. And the secondly is, this in a way is trying to reduce the load so that the student can cope up and get to a more flat world. In a sense, this is trying to create a uniform flat footrest where all the students, irrespective of how difficult they have been, difficulties which they had to face during COVID in their individual families, at least come to a very basic bare minimal platform, so as to have a uh, flight towards future, and a very bright future for the kids.
Say, in terms of periodic table and something, I think Ayan is a can also will also agree with me. See, if you look into the if you go and look into the periodic table portion of the which was being taught there, there is some issue in terms of the teaching of the periodic table where we were teaching. See, when you teach a student periodic table, the student should know about the orbital also little bit, because they have to be taught about the Pauli's exclusion principle. They have to be taught. They know a little bit of Schrodinger's equation, because there are some kind of a because they don't know about the orbital, and they are being told about the KLMN, but they are not being told as the SPDF because they have never been taught the SPDF. And the Mendeleev, modern periodic table, which we call it modern periodic table, that has been designed in terms of the SPDF. And because we are not teaching our ninth and 10th students SPDF, so sometimes it used to create some kind of a confusion in the students, that why from where we are getting the 18 different columns, and where are we are getting the and it is necessary to be taught from them to them SPD, because the 10 columns or the 10 groups are going into the D element there, and D block elements. So there is one thing which I would like to mention, like my summary is that there was something in the when we teach in teaching, it goes like that you teach some primary information on a topic in class 8th, then you teach little bit advanced in class 9th, and as you go in the higher classes you keep on adding to it, fine. So for the to understand the complete modern periodic table, of Mendeleev, our students should also know little bit of SPDF, which was not the part of the curricula. So there are some confusion at some point of confusion. I would like to mention over here that I was talking to the one of the person who has designed this old NCERT book, and he was an IT Kanpur professor, and now he's retired from 10-15 years, and I would not mention his name here, but what I want to tell you that he was telling Vibha, maybe that was a confusion while we were designing it. Maybe this also has taken in consideration while it was being removed now. He's not involved in the latest book. So this is one point in terms of the say periodic table, which I'm giving on my point of view, and which is scientifically true and connected. Similarly, I would like to talk about the evolution also. Fine. In the terms of the evolution, yes, some primary information, whether it is Darwin's principle or there are a lot of discussion that Darwin's principle has some flaws, and in terms of the hereditary traits, like Mendel has given the hereditary traits, and there was some confusion in terms of the Mendel hereditary traits also. So, in the terms of the evolution, also, it is very simple that bacteria doesn't have a nucleus. So, it is bacteria, and some of the developed species or the humans have the cells which are having nucleus. So, there are some very different ways of doing the classification of the species are there, but it is not that simple to do that classification. So maybe experts have sat together and they could have found that maybe we are not able to explain the evolution to the student at the class of 13 and 14, so maybe they are not able to pick up. But yes, we are there, and we also find it that if it can be included back in a more simpler manner, it will be a good thing for all of us. That's there.
I think that's a
That's a wonderful comment, Vibha. I think I would just like to mention the point which we said. That's right, because see, in the periodic table which was taught to the students, see, periodic table and quantum mechanics, as she mentioned, the Schrodinger equation. See, the evolution of the orbitals. Without that, what would happen? I mean, this was we also have went through that. See, the periodic table, there were a lot of exceptions to the properties of elements. So, in fact, each group would have so many exceptions. It would be very difficult for the students without the knowledge of, I mean, without a very basic knowledge of the orbitals, filling up of the orbitals, above principles, Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, and so these are some things. So, in a way, once everything, when again we relook at the syllabus, maybe the periodic table can be brought in, as she said, where the laws of, some basic laws of orbitals can be included, so that otherwise there were a lot of exceptions. It becomes very difficult for the students to have an understanding. So I think that's a very good point. The modern periodic table, once it is introduced, should also be introduced along with the atomic structure and the quantum mechanics to some extent. That's a very valid point.
So whether you record it or not record it, but beneath there is an issue that earlier it was only eight, groups were there, and now it is 18. So modern periodic table is quite different what it was earlier. So earlier means it was to 25, 30 years earlier. So this is a different thing from the what is. So this is also one of my point of view, and Ayan's also, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. I think that's
Any other thing which you would like to know?
No, I think that's a very interesting take that you gave about how, when it was designed in the first time itself, this was not considered. And I think that really adds a very different angle to this discussion altogether. So it's a very well considered view. I just want to say, Professor Tandon, Professor Datta, this has been a really great chat. It's been great to pick your brains, being experts on this subject, and to kind of sift through all the rhetoric that's going on. And we hope that people will check out, references around these subjects, and delve deeper rather than just believe in what is going on in social media. I think that's the moot point that I get out of it. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us on your show.
Great. Yeah. So with that, we come to the end of today's show. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time,
Thank you.
see you
Thank
around.
you.